Welcome to Between Dimensions with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey. And I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker hosts. As collective ascension guides, we are always navigating our 3D and 5D worlds. In other words, we're between dimensions, learning to embody our multidimensionality just like you. During Between Dimensions, you get the best of both worlds, 5D conversations in a 3D format. Tonight, we are joined by Chris Fleming. Chris is a spiritual counselor, paranormal investigator, and artist. We're going to be digging into Chris's journey, anything from paranormal to near-death experiences and everything in between. Welcome, Chris. We're excited to have you on tonight.
Hey, ladies, how are you? Thanks for having me. People don't know that I know you guys, but okay.
Well, we didn't want to be like,
No,
hi,
I
our
think you
friend
guys are
Chris is here
hilarious.
tonight.
People don't know that you guys have a great sense of humor, and I love that in people. So,
Do you want me to add? I was thinking I could tag that on the end. Our friend Chris Fleming.
yeah,
And I was gonna say like amateur comedian, like all
yeah.
these things.
Well, yeah. It's like, yeah. I was a class clown in high school and college. Well, college not so much. Teachers didn't let you get away with that, and really, everybody was more mature. You try to be funny, nobody laughed. I'm like, oh, it doesn't work here in college. In high school, it did though. Man, my sister would get sent to the principal's office, and because we had class together, Spanish class, and I would goof around and never get in trouble, but my sister or someone else would, and they get sent to the principal's office. My sister would go home so upset, like, "Gosh darn it! I got sent to the principal's office because I tried to be funny or did something, or I was talking in class. Chris does all the time, and he never gets in trouble." Because I had that charisma with the teachers. It was like,
Oh, it is true. It's like an endearing quality that you have. Like you can't get annoyed at it because you're like, this is just Chris. Like it
well,
just makes
people
sense.
don't know. Yeah, it's like people don't know. You guys were at the Capcon this past weekend, and I spoke, and we were just talking about this before we went on the show, and I had some type of chemical imbalance moment, which I've been having a lot lately because of what just happened to me March 25th with a vasovagal syncope. But I hadn't gotten much sleep that week, and I think I was stretching myself with eating and not eating. So just before I go on stage, my brain changed to where I was laughing and I couldn't stop laughing, and I was making jokes, and every single thing anyone said or even I said, I thought it was hilarious. Not a way to start off a presentation dealing with entities such as abductions and demonic entities and stuff, because people won't take it seriously. And here I am, just like, you know what, I'm just going to do a comedy routine. And I could have, but then it calmed down in the brain, and then I was fine. But that's the thing is, that fascinates me now more than anything, is studying the brain, in consciousness, inside how the body reacts, but also outside in consciousness. And I know you guys wanted to talk about that.
Yes. Before we get into it, I do want to add the spiritual
Sure.
topic question for anyone
Sure.
joining us live. You are welcome to answer this in the live chat. If you're watching the replay, put it in the comment section. But the question for Chris, we're going to start with you first, is what is one piece of wisdom or advice that someone gave you years ago that now makes sense?
And it's interesting you say now that makes sense. I mean, there's a few things that have happened in the past couple of weeks, but also having gone through cancer, chemo, recovery over the last couple of years, learning, you know, about, the whole thing, but then also realizing people that come into your lives, people that have always been there, and then people that were never there. And you learn, wow, some of the people that I didn't give enough time with were there for me during this time. And the people I expected to be there weren't there. So it's a thing that I remember my best friend, Mike Ignafo, we went to high school together. We played some sports together outside of school. And I was the best man in his wedding. His father said to me, because his dad and my dad got along, and they used to be at a lot of the sports events and stuff. And when I found out his dad was dying several years ago, I said, well, I got to go see him, and I want to tell him about heaven. And when I started telling him about heaven, it's like, look at me like, what are you, crazy? He's even saying, are you crazy? I said, listen, I know he doesn't make sense. There's going to be angels, this and that. My dad's going to be there because he died already. My dad's going to meet you. And he's looking at me like, what the hell are you telling me, right? And I said, if there's anything you could tell us, I said to him, that you can tell Mike and I, what the last days you have here, and he died 7 days later, is what advice do you have? And I'm thinking about that a lot after everything that I've been through, but then also because a guy that I used to know and hang out with in the 90s that I turned away from him, walked away from him back in 2021 because he got involved in drugs. And I told him, you're going down a very bad path. And I saw this terrible path for him. And I said, if you don't change and go get help, I see death's door around you. And unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, he murdered his girlfriend. It's a homicide. He's looking at 60 years of jail, and he's suicidal. So, he's a completely different person. But that is someone that people change in this world. They change in their life. And in the moment, we might think we have a lot of friends. We're like, wow, I got all these friends and everything and stuff like that. Well, my buddy's dad, Joe Ignoffel, Mr. Ignoffel, said to me, Chris, you'll be lucky if you could even fill your entire hand with how many friends you have in your life near the end. And he goes, you'd be lucky if you got one or two, but there's no way you have more than a full hand. And at the time, I'm like, what do you mean? I got a lot of friends. He goes like, no, they're just acquaintances. They're not friends. Because when things go tough and people change, and if most people will never be there for you, there's only a couple that will. And some will surprise you in a bad way, and some will surprise you in a good way. But like I said, you'll be lucky if you could even fill your hand with that many people. And he's right. He's right.
Yeah. I think that's very, very true. And especially the surprising you in a good way and a bad way, because I think we've definitely been through experiences like that where you get, I don't know, somewhat disappointed and then somewhat
Yeah.
surprised by other people.
Right.
I was going
That's
to answer
life.
this question. Yeah, that's life. I was going to say, I was going to answer this question with advice that a spiritual mentor gave me it was 3, 4 years ago now. But I remember she told me, you're not going to be everyone's flavor, and that's okay. And at the time I was like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. And then I was like, things would happen where I was like, wow, I feel really bad about this. Now I'm very much more like free with it, where I'm like, like I'm not your cup of tea. I'm not your cup of tea about it. But yeah, that was one of the pieces of advice that I was given. Yeah,
I'm glad you said that, because what you just said, I was thinking about yesterday. Not everybody's flavor is, how do I say this?
preferences.
Pardon me?
I just flavor. It's like preferences, right? Like
Well,
there's
no,
nothing wrong
yeah,
with
no,
me.
it's like,
Nothing wrong with me. You're just not choosing me, right?
yeah, it's for me, it's like I look at, a lot of the things I've been very fortunate to do in my life, and, growing up in a haunted house, all this other stuff. But even with the ghost stuff, it was very difficult, high school, college, because here I played football. I was studying psychology, and I was an artist. That didn't all mix with the paranormal, especially football, right? So guys would tease you and this and that. And then I didn't really talk about it much because here I am. I'm an athlete. I'm a good fighter. I'm a heterosexual male. Okay. And I'm just saying that, and I'm going to get to that in a second. And I do art. So you had all these like left brain, right? But it's like really weird mix, right? And, for what I do, as people know me in the paranormal community, they don't know me in these other communities. But I'm a heterosexual male that's a medium, which is very rare for a male medium. Okay. But now I'm like a double XL. So anyway, that's rare. I am abrasive because I'm an athlete. I was an athlete. All right. My dad was a hockey player. So I'm not that very hypersensitive medium, like, stuff like and everything. I'm not like that. I've got that roughness to me, which is off-putting to some people. I can totally understand that. But I don't care, because this is who I am, right? So it's those types of things. And, some people have an alpha personality. I would say I have an alpha personality, but I'm also very, where I set back. So I look at life now, like I look at all the other people out there, how different, like I've never felt I belong into a certain group of paranormal investigator or medium. Because I've always wondered, like, why is it that a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with being gay or anything like that. No, I have friends that are like that. Some of my best friends, and when growing up, my mom's flight attendant, Bob used to stay at our house, and he was gay. He'd be outside cutting the lawn in pink shorts. And my mom would be like, oh my God, and this is back in the 70s, right? But he was such a cool guy. We used to do the Ouija board together, right? But it's like, there are a lot of male, gay male mediums out there, So people tend to gravitate because they think they're more sensitive. But I am actually very sensitive, very empathetic, very compassionate with what I do. And a lot of that has to do with believe it or not, my dad had a big heart, even though he's a badass, and my mom always had a compassion to animals. And my near-death experiences, my out-of-body experiences, the experience I had with Jesus in sixth grade, angels, have made me very empathetic and compassionate, but with a sword, if that makes sense, with a sword, because you can't be so compassionate and empathetic and sensitive and then put yourself into demonic, horrific situations and be able to protect yourself or others. You can't. You have to have both sides of that. And there are people that pretend to be this strong, but when it comes down to it, they run away from it. And I'm not the type of person that's going to run away from pretty much anything. And, you could see that with what I went with cancer. I completely embraced it.
Hmm.
So it's, this all goes to what you said earlier too, with having with having only a couple friends, is realizing that it's difficult to find someone that has all those qualities. I have a couple friends that do. They're very strong, but they're also very compassionate and very empathetic. And I have some friends that are strong, but no empathy. Some friends that have a lot of empathy, but no strength. They run away from everything. So you find that happy medium, no pun intended.
I love it. But I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense because you don't, um, those other like archetypes, if you will, that you're describing, like wouldn't be able to have done the things that you've done or gone through the experiences you've gone through if, like, your journey, we always call it the curriculum, like your life's journey, like the curriculum that shapes you for everything that you're met with, like it's there for a reason, and you do have that balance of sensitivity, but also not being afraid of things. Like you don't,
Right.
um, just speaking because we've known each other a while, like I would say like even earlier on our journeys when we were like newer to paranormal, we learned a lot from working with you, Chris. Like
Oh,
we
thank
learned
you.
a ton from working with you. And
Thank you.
I always like I still talk about this to this day. Like I feel like I learned a lot about my own like energetic sovereignty just in terms of like how I protect myself. And it made me like just working with you in the paranormal, like it made me understand like the different types of energies out there and how to protect myself, but also know that like I'm very, very powerful and I'm in control of my
Yeah,
own life and world. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing to feel significant. The question you asked, I ruminated three different things in my head. And so I grasped which Mr. Ignafo had said to me because I felt that was most important in the last few weeks and what I've seen going on in the world, but also seen in dealing with people that I've known. But my dad always said to me growing up, I remember in high school and college, he'd say, don't do drugs, don't do this. And I didn't really mess with any of that stuff. I mean, I'd have someone take cocaine, put it in front of me. Here, try it. No, I don't want to. And I said, if you don't get that on my face, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. And I'm sorry for swearing, but I'm going to say it because that was the way my dad trained me. But I've seen people like, oh, okay, I'll try it because they feel like they have to get along. And my dad said to me, he says, I got to remember the exact words. When it comes to morals and integrity, he goes, as soon as you give up your morals and integrity, you lose your identity of who you are. Stand up for yourself, stand up for others. Don't ever let someone have you do something that you don't want to do. Because once you've done that, then you're no longer you. So I've always kept that with me. Even when I've done TV shows and some producers got pissed off because I said, no, I'm not going to do that. What do you mean you're not going to do that? No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. And it's just the way it is. Even in relationships or other friends, like, hey, we're gonna go. No, I'm going home, or no, I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean? Or that's not right. And you stand up. You don't have to always go along with the crowd. You go along with what you believe in, as long as. And my dad was a very smart man. He'd throw this in there. Just make sure that what you believe in, you're right. Because if you're not right, then you're just as bad as someone else that's doing something wrong. He goes, and then if you do find out you were wrong, always acknowledge it, and fess up to it and then move on quickly. If you don't, then it changes you and it becomes like a cancer, and it becomes something to where you're not even recognizable. And that's like a perfect example that just happened to this guy that murdered his girlfriend. Always tried to be somebody he wasn't. And then when people just didn't want to deal with it anymore, he lost all his identity, which made him killer. He just made him attack people and threaten everybody because he had nothing left. Because
Yeah.
all everybody was he believed was the way everybody perceived him, even though that perception was not real. And I used to tell him why. He had 13 cars that he was taking from his brother. And I said, "Why do you have all these cars?" "Well, I collect cars." He goes, "You can borrow one if you ever want to go on a date." I go, "Why would I want to go on a date with a Ferrari or something like that and pretend it's my car?" He goes, "Well, to impress." I go, "Impress what? With something that's not mine?" And that's the thing. And I saw through that. And usually someone like that, because it's very important to watch who you are around with, that eventually it will fall. You look at the three pigs story. How is their foundation built? Is it strong enough? Are they strong enough? Is their identity real? Because if it's based on these fake things or false things and they don't have a real persona, then eventually they're going to crumble and something bad is going to happen, as we're witnessing. So that's what's important. I know people in the paranormal for years. I mean, I've been very blessed and fortunate to do 20 years of paranormal TV. Will I do it again? I don't know. It's not really important to me, okay? Because I go where my passion is, and my passion right now is music. I want to make music, and I want to get more into my art, and I want to do that, and I want to travel and hang out with some friends I haven't seen in a long time. I want to live those moments. But I've seen some paranormal people, and I won't mention their names, and I saw this back in the early 2000s as well, is that if they're not doing another show or doing another show, they start to lose their identity and they get depressed and they feel no one likes me or nobody wants me. And then I'm like, well, who are you? If your identity is based on just the way people see you on TV, which is only 45 minutes and your screen time's maybe 10 minutes and they don't get to see everything else, then who are you? If it's only 10 minutes of you in a show, or maybe even 5 minutes of you a show, or maybe you were on 30 seconds, but you think that that's your identity, there's so much more to you. And what is that more to you? Go find that out. Figure out who that is. And that's what's important is, and I see today, and I got to mention this because I've been looking at this going, oh my God, do I really want to go back to doing my podcast? Do I really want to do this? Because the entire social media is filled with influencers and everybody trying to be the person that's right, trying to be the know-it-all and this and that. And they're not. 99% of them aren't. They're just creating this persona. But that's what's scary, is because people do take your words for it and they listen to it, So you want to pay attention to people or learn from people that are very, very experienced within what they do, or things that they state that you can apply that are beneficial to improve your life. And that's what's important nowadays, because there's a lot of false information that's out there. So we have to be careful of that. And I'll give you an example. I remember, because I speak at colleges and universities, and I haven't spoken at colleges and universities in the last 2 years. And I've been doing that since 2006 with GP Entertainment. But obviously I didn't do it the year I had cancer, and I had 6 colleges I was supposed to speak at, and I used to speak at 20 or 30, but it dwindled slowly and stuff. So last year we were hoping, okay, we're going to get those 6 back when I had cancer. We had 0. And we're like, why? And unfortunately, the Doji, the new administration, cut all the funding to colleges and universities for the arts and entertainment. And the funds that go into arts and entertainment and all the universities is what they use to pay for speakers, entertainers, and stuff to come to the schools. So for the first time over 19 years, I lost my job. It's because of the administration, which was really upsetting and disappointing. So
Yeah.
I don't even know this year if I'm going to have a gig speaking in October, so that may be coming to an end because of the funding. But my factor of what I'm trying to say is that I was at one of the schools, and a girl came up to me and says, "Hey, what do you think about Roswell?" I said, "No, there really was a down craft. I mean, the research I did, especially in the 90s, speaking to certain people in the UFO community at the time and seeing some of the documents and what came out, and they reversed the story. There was a craft, and there may have been 2 craft with bodies, alien bodies." She goes, "Oh my God, so Roswell's real." I said, whoa. I'm telling you, based on my research, what my conclusion is, that it's real, okay? You should go research it yourself and come to your own conclusion. listen to that, how important that is. But today, someone says something and everybody's either for it or against it, even though it may be 100% true. So we have to be very careful what we say, but it doesn't, but what's being pushed, that propaganda, is to control, like, listen to me, follow me, because I'm right. Everybody else is wrong. And now it's let's attack the other person that doesn't believe or doesn't agree, because that way it makes it look like I'm more right and I force you to listen to me. That's so wrong. I mean, that's not the way I was raised. And it's so wrong. And I get angry and upset about that at certain people because they do that. It's like, hey, let people have the freedom of their own free will and thought. And I think that's very important nowadays, is uh, that free will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, humans, we have a tendency to go in extremes. I know this is like a theme, I think, at the CAPS conference too this past weekend, right? Like I know you mentioned with the example of like it's demon or angel, and it's like no, it's something completely different.
And it really
It's the
gets me
same.
angry when I hear that.
Yeah, yep. And I think of that too with one of the other speakers we had listened to, like he had talked about like keeping a reasonably open mind and like not defaulting to like we default to the one program, the one operating system we're used to versus like opening our minds a little bit to another way of being, especially since that's really what science is. Science really actually is about keeping an open mind
Right.
and experimenting and testing and seeing what the outcome is.
But yet you'll have certain skeptics. They cram science down you because science hasn't proven this. There's no, science says that doesn't exist. And they'll cram it down your throat to try to prove their point, when they believe that there's no such thing as ghosts or there's no such thing as aliens. And I sit there and go, science is just theorize. It's a theory, and then something else comes along to prove or disprove it. So, what are you actually using as your argument? And just to talk about the Capcom, I had a lot of fun uh, seeing people. I mean, there wasn't a lot of people there because of the economy and stuff like that. I'm just going to come out and say it: is people are not really venturing out, and I'm hoping that more people start to do that. But I loved seeing all the vendors there that have created all these different things with today's technology, with their printers and stuff. And I'm walking around the tables going, wow, look what you created, your arts and crafts. And they have these beautiful, everybody had these beautiful displays and setups and stuff. And they're all proud of the stuff they did, which is great because I'm an artist too. So I'm watching that. To me was the most exciting thing about the whole weekend, was walking around seeing everybody else's table and the stuff they did. And I'm like, listen, I'm coming off cancer and stuff. I got to watch my money. Otherwise, I'd be buying this, buying that, buying this, buying this, because I really like what a lot of these people are creating based on their love and passion and interest in Bigfoot or paranormal or spiritual stuff, whatever. This one woman has this children's book with Bigfoot, Squatch, and I thought it was awesome. I said, oh my God, you got to do a cartoon. You got to do like an animated thing
Yeah, I
on
love
YouTube.
that.
So I just saw all these wonderful creative aspects everybody was doing. I wish more people got to see this because I know a lot of these people put their heart and passion into it. To me, that was enjoyable. I loved walking around seeing that. And I was like, oh my God, look what you guys are doing. This is so cool because, I've been going to paranormal conventions for 20 years. We didn't see a lot of this stuff back then. We just have
Yeah.
t-shirts, or ghost hunting equipment, and that's it. Right now you've got all these different, it's amazing, amazing. Sorry,
So I
like a little
no, it's
kid.
fine. No, I agree. I do. I want to circle back to something that I was going to ask you about because I feel like I've never asked you this before.
Yes.
Why, like, what convinced you to actually go on paranormal TV? Because I feel
Oh,
like it
I've,
wasn't
I've,
very popular when you were first
yeah,
like
no,
on
I've told this
TV.
story many times, and it's the honest to God truth. You can even ask the producer. Is I was doing a magazine, Unknown magazine, and the magazine just came across because I got hired at this mortgage company because I was designing his brochures and I was designing his logo. He says, "Why don't you come work for me and make much more money doing mortgages?" And I go, "I don't know anything about that," but he was a good salesman and he got me to work for him. And then one night, everybody's around the office talking, and these are all financial analysts and mortgage brokers. And someone says they had a ghost appear in their house, and then someone else, and they're all from different countries. Some of these people were from Africa, some were from Asia. We had this eclectic group of people from all over the world that worked in this office in Chicago. And everybody's telling these stories. And I'm like fascinated because I'm thinking, I didn't know all these things went on in other countries. So I went down the street because there was a newsstand and started picking up all these paranormal magazines because I used to read Fate magazine when I was a kid. So I got all these magazines, and a buddy of mine talked me into doing my own magazine. So I did my own magazine because I was a designer, because he did a magazine so on monsters, and I decided to do one on the paranormal. So for several years, I published it on my own and did it, and got to speak to people all over the world because I had the passion and interest, but I wanted to know what other people had around the world. And but then I got really busy in the mortgage business in 2000, and I couldn't do both. And I was almost broke doing the magazine, but I did it because I was passionate. I'm like, you know what? I got to survive. So I stopped doing the magazine, but I said, the girl I was dating at the time, I said, I got a feeling that I'm going to be doing this in a different form of media, like something on TV in the future, of like an unknown magazine TV show or something. So it was 2000, the end of 2000. 2003, I get an email from Charlotte, who was a producer for 2-4 Productions in the UK. She goes, hey, we got this TV show we're doing. We'd like to see if you'd like to be a part of it, like as a host. I wasn't interested, so I didn't respond. And the reason I didn't respond is because I had done something for ABC called Real Scary Stories. I was a consultant, and they filmed me interviewing the kids and taking them around Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, and they never used that footage. Good reason. I didn't know how to talk in a camera and stuff. I was talking directly to them. I never looked at. So it wasn't a great interview by any means because I wasn't interested. I was more interested in what the kids were seeing and experiencing. Anyways, so I wasn't interested in doing it. I don't want to go on TV. You know, it's like I'm doing mortgages. And so I ignored it. And then 2 months later, the phone rings at the mortgage business, and the reception goes, we got a phone call from the UK. It's very important for you. I'm like, what? The UK? We don't do mortgages in the UK. She goes, it's not about mortgages. She said she tried to reach it. I'm like, this has got to be a wrong number, right? So I get on the phone. She goes, is this Chris Fleming? Yeah. Do you publish the magazine, Unknown Magazine? No. You don't publish the Unknown Magazine? No, I stopped publishing. I don't publish anymore. Why are you calling me? She goes, oh, we're working on this TV show. Did you ever get my email? I go, yeah. Why didn't you respond? Because I'm not interested. So that's how it started out. She goes, well, can I send it to you again? Because the network really wants this show. And we like to, I go, I'm not really, she goes, please, just read this. And I said, all right, fine, I'll read it, send it to me. So I'm reading this. The other guys in the office come around, we're reading this. They go, oh my God, are you going to do this? I'm like, I don't want to do a TV show, right? So I'm like, I don't know. So I called my mom to tell my mom, as a joke. I go, Mom, guess what? Someone wants me to do this. She goes, oh, you should go do it. I go, no, I'm not going to go do it. She goes, well, what are they saying? Well, they want to fly me out to the UK. She goes, Chris, we used to go to the UK all the time when I was a flight attendant. Excuse me. She goes, just go because it's a free trip. I'm like, yeah, it's just a free trip. I'll go. So I went to London, and I was only there for 2.5 days. I was so tired too. And I got to meet Gail, and then we went to where Mark Bolan crashed his car and died. He was a big rock star in the UK. And they said, can you make contact with him? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't done this in a while. And so I put my hand on the tree, and all of a sudden, boom, I started feeling stuff, seeing stuff. And I felt like I was a little kid again when we used to do all this stuff in the house, the seances and everything. I was like, holy cow. I didn't lose it. It's still there, right? And so I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool, And then I flew home, and I didn't think anything of it. Didn't think anything of it, right? Went back to, because I wasn't interested. I didn't want to go put all that on TV and do that. That was stuff we did private and personal in the house. Got teased with in high school and in grade school. I got teased about that stuff, so I don't want to do it. So I get the phone call. She goes, hey, we got great news. I said, oh, good for you. And she goes, it got green lit. I said, what got green lit? She goes, the show. I said, oh, congratulations. She goes, well, we're going to start filming in a couple weeks. I said, oh, congratulations. She goes, what's your schedule like? What do you mean, what's my schedule like? Because I hadn't done this before. I'm doing mortgages. She goes, well, you're on the show. I said, well, why am I on the show? She goes, because that's why we flew you out there. I wasn't thinking about it. I'm like, well, I don't want to do the show. I just went there for the free trip to go to the UK. She's like, well, you have to do the show. And the one thing about Charlotte, because I'm still friends with her, like I just talked to her last week, okay? Because we tried working on other stuff, but we keep in touch all the time. And I love her to death, is that she's very strong. I love strong women, and when I say that they're determined, they don't take no for an answer. She's like, no, and I'm like, oh my God. So now I'm terrified. My mom's like, just do the show. If there's something you don't want to do, just don't do it. And this and like that. And I was so scared the first episode. You could see that I'm eating the chili, and I keep eating the chili. And the Marilyn Monroe was the very first episode. And I'm like, yep. And I'm very short. Like Gail's like, what do you think? All right, let's go inside. That's it. No personality, no nothing, because I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And that was the first thing. And here's what changed me. Okay. And I've told this several times before. Charlotte goes, okay, what you're going to do. And there was another psychic that was there. And I could tell he had this ego. And he was looking at me like sizing me up and down. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to try to compete. I'm not here to compete with anybody, man. I'm just here to try to make contact with the ghosts and stuff. But people in California, that's where they are. They're very competitive. So he's very competitive. So Charlotte's like, are you going to bring everybody into the room? And you got people that have known Marilyn or whatever, and you're going to try to make contact with Marilyn Monroe. I'm like, that's a lot of pressure. I don't want to do it. She was me. That's why you're on the show. That's what I love about her. If it was somebody else, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today because I just would have walked. But she's like, no, you're going to go do it. I'm like, she goes, well, you got to do this. This is why we hired you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrified. So I'm like, I know what I can do. So, and I didn't tell her. So I walk in with everybody. I said, all right, gather around. And I just did like I used to do when we were kids and with my mom and everybody. I said, all right, let's get the white light around us. We're going to say a protection of prayer. We're going to see whoever comes through. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of seeing something in the ether. I'm like, I'm seeing a woman, but I don't know if that's Marilyn. I don't know what it is, right? And then so I pass it over to the other psychic. I go, hey, Michael, do you see the woman in the ether and everything? He's like, yes, I do. Tell us about it. He takes off, making contact with Marilyn and everything. He starts doing automatic writing. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. I don't have to do anything, right? So I'm sitting there. And then this is what changed. We're all holding each other's hands. And the crew's walking around filming everybody, right? I've got my eyes closed. All of a sudden, I feel this hand go over our hand. So I look, because I think it's maybe the cameraman or director. Remember, this is the first episode. This is one of the first locations. And there's nobody there. And I look at the one. She's like, oh my God, do you feel that hand? I go, yes. It's a ghost. I'm like, holy cow. So I'm like, all right. So I close my eyes again. And then all of a sudden, on my left side, same side where the hand was, I feel someone poking me. Now I'm thinking it's Charlotte, like, okay, they want me to say something, right? So I look, there's a little girl ghost. I see this little girl ghost, cute little girl ghost. She's glowing. And I see all these other people behind her. And I don't know who they were. I didn't recognize them. And I'm looking and she goes, Chris, we've always been here. You just chose to ignore us. And I'm sitting there going, because I'm thinking in my head, I can't do this. I don't know if I can make. I start crying. And as I'm crying, looking at her, the producer sees this, comes over. What's going on? What are you crying about? What are you crying? We got to get this on camera. What are you crying about? I go, there's all these ghosts here. They're telling me they've always been here. They talk to me. She was like, well, say something on the camera. And I'm like, because remember, I don't know how to do TV. I'm not really even interested. I'm just going along with it, right? And so I turn and I'm like, and then boom, I get all these. I open up, and as I opened up, James Dean comes through. Mae West came through. All these other people, like, she's like, why are you channeling James? Well, James Dean wants to talk. She goes, but we're not talking to him for like a week or so. She goes, I don't know, he's talking now, and it just, they started lining up. And I was like, I call my mom, I go, Mom, you're not going to believe this. Remember the time we did the Ouija board and all the ghosts would come around and everything and stuff? She goes, oh, yeah. And we talked for hours and stuff. That happened. They all lined up. And she's like, oh, my God, that's so cool. And I'm like, I thought I couldn't do it. I didn't know what to expect. So for me, that was just like, all right, I was doing it not to be on TV. Now I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're going to the most haunted places. Whaley House, Hotel Coronado, Winchester House, places I've always heard about. Who's going to be there? Who am I going to come in contact with? So now I was like a little kid again, like I was in grade school when we were doing the Ouija board and talking to the ghosts in the house. So for me, that's all it really meant. But then after the 6th episode, I quit. I said, I don't want to do this anymore because Gail and one of the other producers were like teasing me and not believing what I was saying. I said, I don't need the ridicule and stuff. I'm busy in the mortgage business. This is why I hated telling people at school what was going on. So I was done. And then they apologized to me, and because then the show wanted to do 2 more episodes, Return to Alcatraz and Return to Thunderbird Lodge. But I told them I'm not doing it. You got to get somebody else. So they're like, please, we really want to do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to let them down because they made me feel like I'm letting them down. And I don't like to do that. So I went and did it. I'm glad I did. I had to get over myself, and I had to build up my own confidence. And they destroyed my confidence at one point because they weren't taking it seriously. So I said, I'm not going to do this. But I grew, and that's why I'm still friends with everybody from that series. And we're talking about 2003 to 2007, is because I grew with them. and they were there to be very hard on me. They were very abrasive. They were tough because they were British. But because of them, I would not have been who I am today. I would have just turned my back on this and said, I'm not going to do this. So I owe them a lot because they really got me to toughen up and deal with it. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think like what you said in the beginning, like you went for that 2-day trip, and it's not like you went there like I'm gonna prove myself to these TV people.
No,
Like
I've never
you
been like that.
you
I'm just
literally
going for the
just
free trip, you
but
know?
you were yourself. Like it was authentic. It was genuine. It wasn't
Yeah,
like you
that's
were
what the
trying to
network
get
said.
it wasn't like you were trying to get something out or be someone
No.
that you weren't. So I think that also is I think like I see that clearly as part of your journey too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was, and I've worked with, you know, always got to be careful how I say this because I'm not into throwing people under the bus, so to speak. But there are people in the paranormal community, been on TV, that are doing it just to be famous. And some of them you can see who they are, and some of them I know, So for me, it's kind of like, you know, it's none of my business. I just do what I do. But I've always had with me that as I was doing more shows and stuff, like, you know what, I really only want to work with people that are very passionate about what they do. Um, and there has to be this understanding of like, okay, what's your intent and purpose for doing this? Like I tried to establish that with Haunted Scotland, and Ryan was very passionate about what he does. We butted heads the first season, but it's because he's Scottish, and I needed to know more about him, and he needed to know more about me. And I've worked with Gail before, so it's like we never stopped because we went through all those hard things before. And sorry, and so I know what she's like. So her good moments and bad moments, I'm there for her as a friend. So, she went through a lot during that season, and I was there for her, and other people didn't understand. I said, no, I've dealt with this when we did Dead Famous. We got this, and I love her to death. So that was good. But then there was other people on the show that just, they're in their own little world. And because they're in their own little world, they just didn't really fit into the group, and they didn't know how to contribute to the group as well as contribute because they're there for different reasons. And that was unfortunate. And that's, I think, what really affected the Haunted Ireland show is because we just didn't have, like Ryan and I were really contributing to the show as much as we could, but other people weren't. And that was just difficult because we want to see the show grow. But the thing is, you have to contribute. If you're doing a TV show, this is the way I look at it. And what I've learned from doing all these different shows is you have to contribute something, not only to the field, but to the viewer. And if you're there just to be on TV and stuff, well, it's noticeable because you're never contributing anything. You're just walking around asking stupid questions and not getting any results. And if you get any results, you don't pursue the results. You just say, oh, I got an EVP. And okay, so what does EVP say? What does it mean? What is the spirit trying to tell you? Are you going to go back? And, there's those additional layers and additional parts of the investigation that you have to do that I've always wanted to do more and more and more of to contribute. So that's the only reason why I do it. If it's not a good fit for me, I'm not going to do it. Like I have some ideas of what I would like to do in the future, but there's things I will definitely not do. And if it's just, oh, we're gonna like that was that one series they had on Netflix where they got locked in for 30 days. They called me, said, hey, you want to do this? We're gonna put you. I go, well, what's the point of that? Well, we want to see what your emotions are and everything. I said, yeah, but I've been a counselor for 20 years. Why am I going to go do that? Then why don't you have me work with some of the, no, we want to, I said, do you know my background? I've been doing this for like 20 years and you want to put me in a group for 30 days and see how I react to it, but yet you don't know anything about me. I said, nah, if you don't know anything about me, what I've done, how can I contribute more? You want me to go backwards to be like kind of like an amateur and just throw me in there and have me all scared and freaked out? No, that's not what I do. I got to contribute somehow. So I told him, I go, you got the wrong guy. So, but I have some friends that were on the show and they did great and it was good, but it wasn't a fit for me. I just, for me to contribute and to learn something, but then also give something, it wasn't a good fit. So for me, it's like I really sit down and pick and choose. Like Haunted Scotland, they said, hey, Gail's doing this show. Of course, I'm going to work with Gail. I got to protect her. But then going to Scotland, going to these places, oh my God, yeah. You kidding me? We went, it's the places we went to, Scotland, Ireland. I love it. I love it.
I am curious. So we talk a little bit about, right, how you kind of got into this, right? with the spirits. And I
Yeah.
know you have you experienced this a lot growing up as a kid, but now you've shared more about stories with extraterrestrials too, because
Yeah.
as much as you're talking about your experiences with ghosts, which as you've said and Lacey and I agree, right? They're just people. But I'm curious like how you've handled those like ET experiences over time and to the point where you are now where you're sharing it more.
Yeah. Those, like I had said before, is there's only a couple. Well, I didn't say no on this, not before with you guys heard before, but the radio show here we're doing now, they haven't heard. Is there's only a few people that know my stories, and the reason being is when you talk about abductions, when you talk about these encounters, it's enough to say, I see ghosts, I talk to ghosts, I've seen demons, I've seen angels, I've seen imps. Now I'm going to talk about aliens. People think, you're okay, you're just crazy, you're making this shit up. And it's not me. So to have these experiences and have them revealed to me in the 90s through regression with Dolores Cannon, with some psychologists, trying to figure out what was happening, to have some of the girlfriends I was with get abducted too, to have bruises and things on them, to have an implant removed in 91 from my nose, and all these other things. It's like, all right, I'm not talking about this because I've seen how other people have been ridiculed. Now, there was people in the field, John Lear and some other people, Daryl Sims, that I had spoken to back in the 90s about my experiences, okay, because they were professionals, but we kept it personal. And even Bob, God, I forgot his name off the moment, but he did regressions. He says, yeah, if you ever come out to my state, I'll do a regression. And we'll go back to some of these. Never got to. I wrote a letter to John Mack, back in the day when he wrote his first book. So I had correspondence with these people, but I didn't talk about it publicly. I've got the VHS tape with Dolores Cannon. I told Dave Schrader over a decade or so ago. I've told Brian Murray about my experiences, but personally, sitting in the hospital going through cancer, realizing that, okay, I might only have 2 weeks left, and realizing I never wrote the book. It happened one Easter. I never got to tell these stories. I'm like, oh man, I never got to tell these revelations of what they told me, of these encounters, what I learned about us and about other alien races. I'm like, what a waste, you know? I always worried about what people would think and this and that, but here I am now, I'm going to die, and this information is going to go to my grave. So I said, if I beat this, I'm going to start telling everything that I know, I've experienced, no holding back. It doesn't matter anymore what people think. So that's the thing. Writing a book's a little difficult still with my eyes, the way my eyes are. But hopefully I get to that point. But then seeing what's going on in social media, where people saying that all aliens are demons or angels and stuff. And listen, there are some parallels in the Bible with the fallen and this and that. Absolutely. Okay. But I'm telling you right now, when you say God, you got to be careful, because a lot of these aliens and stuff were treated as gods. A lot of these beings and fallen angels were treated as gods and became gods. Greek, Aztec, Mayans, Romans, whatever. And some of them, there were no gods. They were just made up, and there was no actual spiritual, supernatural entity figure behind it. But there's one creator. And the creator is what we've called God in certain religions. Excuse me, Allah and stuff like that. It's just this one creator. But the creator never stopped creating. The creator created all these other beings. And a lot of these beings are talked about, whether it's the Elohim or Nephilim or whatever that's in the Bible. But there's more to that as well. And these creations have gone out and created in various universes, other dimensions, other planets, whatever you want to call it. There's so many other locations and places. We're not the only one, but unfortunately, majority of man thinks they're the center of the universe. That's just the ego. So if it's not us and it's not God, then it's got to be an angel or demon. And that's their mindset. But that's been mindset also with certain races. When you look at racism, you're evil. You don't come from God. And it's just, that's why the aliens, these extraterrestrials, okay, these other beings from other dimensions and stuff, like to stay pretty much hidden or just interact here and there for their own biological research and for their own creations, because we're primitive. They're like, you guys are primitive. You guys fight amongst yourself. You hate each other. You hate your own races. You all come from the same source, and you all go to the same source. You kill all living things that come from the creator, the creator's consciousness, energetic force is in every living thing, and you abuse it and you kill it. But then you say you love God, which is completely contradictory and hypocritical. So we consider you guys primitive because you're going to think that we're evil and this and that, but we're not. And that's what's happening. So it's got me mad. It's like, hey, I almost died a couple times. So now it's like, I'm not holding back, and I'm going to speak up and be abrasive if I need to. Anyone that says that they're all angels and demons and doesn't get it, because you know what? I didn't get that chance. And I've survived for God knows what reason, maybe do my music, do who knows what else, but I'm just going to speak up. I'm not holding back anymore and worried because, I could be dead next week or 6 months or 5 years from now. So I need to speak up. Yes, I had alien encounters. I had abductions. I did drawings of them many decades ago. I had girlfriends that were abducted as well, neighbors, family, pets. And I'm open to any questions you want to ask because because now is the time to talk about these different races. There's many different races, and I'll put it in a nutshell. What I was told by the Nordic, okay, is he said that every single species that you guys have, amphibians, reptiles, birds, certain parasites, they've all evolved into intelligent beings in other dimensions, planets, and other places. But there are also angels and demons, which are spiritual beings. So you see the difference. It's right there. So birds, you take a look at the Egyptians, you got cats, birds, dogs, all evolved into intelligence. But then a lot of humans are like, no, nobody's smarter than me. We're the smart. God says that this is our domain and we're the Yeah, that had to be created. Otherwise, you would go crazy and you would be worshiping all these other gods and stuff, which you did anyway. And you continue to do with politicians. You worship politicians. And it's like, man, the problem with man, they said we're so primitive, is we either like to lead and control one another, or we have to be led because we have a hard time thinking free will on our own. But then people say, no, I'm free will. No one tells me what to do. But yet you worship certain politicians and just think they're the greatest thing in the world. So that's why the aliens look at us and go, wow, you guys still got a lot to learn. We do.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, thinking back, because when Marley and I went through all of our starseed stuff, which was like making contact with these different beings, and trying to make sense of things that they were sending us. It wasn't like we weren't public right away with it because it was kind of like, the twins talk to ghosts. Now the twins are going to talk to aliens. Like we always say, it's kind of weird. But what's ironic about this is behind the scenes, it was happening when we were in Ireland. I think it was like 2024.
Yep.
But I'll never forget being at Blackwater Castle and Ryan had his Frank's box. And they asked us to go over to it and like touch the Frank's box to like give it a boost. So I'm like, yeah, sure, Marley, and I go over there. The Frank's box goes to alien when we touch it. And like everybody was laughing. They're like, oh, it's the twins. And I was like, everyone knows, Marley. Like inside, I was like, everyone knows, and I haven't talked about any of it publicly yet. But it's kind of interesting how you can journey from being uncomfortable with it and then you start to accept it more. And we obviously reached a point where we were like, we don't really care. This is something we can't hide anymore. And because we literally were doing mediumship sessions where like all we would channel is extraterrestrials, and people would be like, I never told anyone about that. Why are you bringing it up? And I was like, I don't know. It's what they're showing me. Like, why are you acting weird about it? Like, we're like the bald blue man in your closet with a cape. Yeah, when you were pregnant with your son. Yeah, real Starseed experiences.
Well, the thing is, people don't realize, because I did read a lot from my own experience. And first, I started reading a lot too because of people I was interviewing in my magazine in the 90s, and I found all this stuff fascinating, not realizing and slowly beginning to realize that I was a part of it, and I didn't like that part either. So that's another reason why I didn't talk about it. I'm like, no, I can't be involved in this. But a lot of twins, the aliens are fascinated about. Well, their fascination is their fascination because of the hybrid system of cloning and replication, or is it because they're involved? Well, both are true, because when you look at various abductions and encounters people have had, this conversation's been brought up with other twins, as well as conversations regarding the twins having the same DNA, which comes from them in their replication process. So it's just fascinating.
Mm.
If you guys have not done so already, forgive me if I don't know, but I would suggest trying to find a reputable regression therapist documenting the regression and going back to some of your encounters to document and get more information. And one of the best parts about this, because I've had this done several times, not only for my abductions, but mostly for my past lives, is you get to relive those experiences and details. But if the therapist is experienced enough and good at what they do, they can kind of freeze the moment and you can ask questions of the participants from that event as if it's in real time, gaining new information. Very similar to what John Mack did with the children, is he was able to, ask them questions about the environment, what they were witnessing, but then also they could ask the alien itself, why are you abducting this child? Where are you from? What star system? How long have you been abducting this person? What is it you're seeking? And in a lot of cases, not a lot of cases, I can't answer that, but in situations that I personally experienced, they would answer, or they say, well, we can't tell you that. It's you're not supposed to know that, or we can tell you this. But then people say, well, they're lying. I was, well, how do you know they're lying if you've never met one, never talked to one?
Yeah.
When you're with some of them, you can tell whether one's evil or whether one's good. And I knew with the Nordic, I've known you before, but it gets wiped out into my subconscious. But then, I begin to remember stuff from other lives and from other times that you've abducted me or my mom. So, but I have a hard time with it because then you suppress it and you go back to the not knowingness. Like, I don't know who you are, but yeah, you do. It's very similar to our guides, angels, and stuff on the other side. When we leave this body, we begin to remember people from other lives that are on the other side and are guides, but yet we don't know who they are for the most part when we're here, because that goes back to the free will of the Creator allowing us to have this unique experience in this life, in this present moment, and not being distracted into the quantum realm of all these other lives we've had. They have their own story. You're creating a new story here, so you got to stick to this story.
Yeah. We both did quantum hypnosis, at least like a little over a year ago. But it was interesting because I did it first. So like I I pushed on a lot of things. And it was just interesting how they would tell me what they could tell me, but there were certain ceilings where they would tell me like that's classified. We can't tell you that.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah,
really interesting. Especially when it came to like me understanding the two of us and
Yeah.
why we entered together into this because we have separate birthdays and it's a whole thing where we switched like in the womb physically switched with who
oh
was born
wow,
first. So like I was asking all these questions. I had things from childhood where like I got really, really sick. I had my appendix out at a very, very young age, and I started talking about seeing things and people, and that's what
wow,
prompted like our parents to essentially be like, something's wrong, she's really sick, because I didn't manifest the typical like health physical symptoms of like having appendicitis as
oh
a kid
wow.
would. Um, got a lot of information on that kind of stuff, but I do think like even just listening to your whole longer story and your journey with this experience, it was very validating for the two of us just because it's a lot of the same information we've received from communicating with these beings, although mine always gave me fun little analogies. And like you had this discussion with a Nordic about like the system and like planting things on planet,
Yeah,
mine
the
was like,
robots. Yeah,
yes, and mine was like, Lacey, think of source like a variety cheesecake. All of us are little fractures off of that cheesecake that are different flavors. And I was like, it makes like we're
yeah,
back to the flavor analogy now. So then we always say, what flavor of cheesecake are you?
yeah. It's interesting how they will relate their concept of what's going on to our persona, our lack or knowledge, as well as our personality and our humor and stuff. They will tell us a story because they can read our minds and everything, so they know our personal behaviors and traits, what we like and don't like, and they can just scan it telepathic because that's what they are. They communicate through the mind. Because of that, everything, every thought, every experience is known to them. So, out of respect and being comfortable for us, they will relay it in a way that we can understand, which is why a lot of encounters like, we're not here to hurt you. You're in that sense of shock, like, oh my God, who are you? Are you evil? You're going to take me away. No, we're not here to hurt you. We're just here, relax. And if that doesn't work, they usually make the person knocked out, or they just make the person fall asleep because they don't want to harm the person or the person harm themselves. And that's what happens a lot.
Yeah. I've also been told, like, they'll be like, "We don't have human words for that. Like, we can't explain this in a way right now that would make sense in the human language." I've received that too before.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Where do we want to go next, Mar? I think I'm going to take a spiritual hot seat question here. I am going to ask you, keeping it in the spirit of different types of entities that you've experienced, which type of entity do you think you learned the most from?
Interesting. I know that the angels were never really forthcoming with information. I mean, there would be messages, and it'd be a message like, "This is going to happen. That's going to happen. Be careful." That's it, right? Um, so I could say that in those parts of my life, they either helped me or warned me. And the times I listened, it helped. The times I didn't, I kicked myself. But the imps, even though I don't sit and have conversations with them, their encounters, though mostly scary and have, impacted my life in negative ways, I've learned a lot about how to overcome those situations, to grow, to have stronger faith, and to overcome fear. Which we can just sing, oh, there's an angel, so I'll just, let him protect me. But I've learned because of especially when I was a child, how terrified I was, how terrified my sister was, how the sitters would quit saying we have the devil in our house. That taught me that, what, mom's not here, dad's not here, this is happening. I have to just stand up. I have to be strong. I have to, because I don't want to be taken into the darkness. I don't want to die, whatever else they're thinking of. So I learned how to become strong, because you get to a point where you're so tired of not sleeping, going to school, getting teased because you're falling asleep in class, and you almost get held back. You get tired of people not believing you, and then you get tired of them. And you said, you know what, I'm just fed up. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of being fed up. And then you just stand up to them. That taught me to be strong. And then it taught me, obviously, if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been as knowledgeable and helpful in my counseling over 20 years for people. I wouldn't have been strong enough, on psychic kids, on Help My House is Haunted, to do what I did. So I have to say I learned a lot from them, but not in a direct communication way. Excuse me, but because of my experience way, of the experience of being put in those situations, like someone, and I can't remember who said this, and it was a spiritual thing. It might have been in Whitley Strieber's book, The Key, but it's kind of like if you have a lot of weight and resistance or something, and you get all this resistance, either you're going to get crushed or you have to get stronger to hold it off, And I think that I was forced to become strong. And because of them putting me in that situation, even the horrible situations, toxic situations, that it made me become who I am today.
Absolutely. One more question I have. Actually, I think there's gonna be two more. But I wanted to ask you what you what has been your biggest takeaway? Because you've had a couple different near-death experiences. What has
Mm-hmm.
been your biggest takeaway from those experiences?
That's an easy one, actually. From the last one that just happened on March 25th, when the portal opened up and my dad was coming out with some of the other relatives, I noticed it was dark. And I know that I've learned the void between the dark void and the light void has nothing between good and evil. It has to do with decision making of what's happening. So when I saw him, it was unexpected because I'm just getting a bone marrow biopsy. But what happened to me, we now know because my brain's got a problem with oxygen. and I had a vasovagal syncope. My oxygen dropped to 50%, so I almost died. So because of that, seeing them coming for me and my dad and everything, is I had a decision again. But right away I was like, no, I don't want to go. I said, I'm writing this music. I'm not done with it. And I got all this other music that I haven't been passionate about something like this in a long time. And, doing the last paranormal show, it really took away my passion because the directors and producers just ruined it for me. They didn't allow me and Ryan to do what we love to do. They tried to control everything. And after 20 years being in the industry, that just kind of just inflated me. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. If nobody's going to listen to me after I've been doing it so long, then what's the point? You know what I mean? I'm just going to do something else. So with the music, I can do exactly what I want to do. And I have some friends that are in the industry that I can lean on and have been there, very helpful for me, and all these other things happening. So for me, I get to do the creative process and create exactly the way I want it and do what I want. So for me, it's like for the first time in my life, I feel like I can do what I want and not have to worry about someone else getting in the way. And I said, so God, please let me do this. I don't have to rely on anybody else, just myself to do this. And I said, I need to do this. And I know heaven's always going to be there. The afterlife's always going to be there. I said, guys, and plus, I'm not going to die from a bone marrow biopsy. Come on, man. It's got to be something more dramatic. It's got to be something more like, I want to save people. if I'm going to die, it better be like I run into a burning fire, get everybody out, and then I die. Okay? It can't be something like laying on my back, getting someone poked just above my ass, and I die from that. No. Right? I mean, that's embarrassing. So for me, it's like, I ain't going that way. So you compare that to 2010 when I stopped breathing, okay, and it's all related, we know now. After my car accident, it's been several months after my car accident, because the brain and the brainstem get affected to where I stop breathing. I was out of my body, and next thing on my other side, I see this guide, and I realize, just after him is heaven. I go, let's go. I don't want to go back. Forget it. I'm done. He's like, well, you got to go back. I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. I want to go into heaven. I'm done with this world, And then he shows me the bridge with all the people, and then I realize, oh, wow, I'm being selfish. It's not about me. It's about all them. Send me back. I'm so sorry. Because I realized that my interaction with them in various degrees, or their interaction with me, is important to their life, to their development, their path. So for me to not be in that equation is impacting so many people. So oh my God, I can't live with letting all those people down. So send me back. So you look at what happened in 2010, and I thought about it that night. What happened in 2010, and then here we are in 2026, near-death experience, to where I said, I ain't going. I don't want to go. I'm not going. Compared to where I wanted to go, and now I'm telling them, nope, I ain't going. So I think it was kind of a test, because they didn't argue. They didn't say, oh, you have to go. He says, well, if you want to go, you can go now. I'm like, I ain't going. Don't even think of it. Don't show up. I'll tell you when I'm ready to go. And then they left. And then all the angels were there. I'm like, why are the angels still here? I'm like, get out of here. Go. And at first I felt I was being disrespectful. But I realized then the angels weren't there for me. They were watching everybody in the room, because everybody was saying prayers for me. Like the one nurse says, she goes, you tell your dad to go away. You're not dying on my watch. I said, I'm not going to die. She goes, you better not. My job is to save you. I said, I ain't going anywhere. She goes, good. You tell your dad. And to see that love, and to see everybody in that hospital room that was trying to save me, even though I wasn't afraid to die and I wasn't asking to be saved, I realized when I saw those angels, wait a minute, they're not there for me, because they're looking at all these different people. They're there because in some shape or form, every person in there is praying right now. They're praying for me as they pray for everybody else that comes in that hospital. And I'm seeing that connection. So I realized, man, I got a responsibility again, but the thing is, I have a choice, and not even considering wanting to go. Now I could take the easy way. I'm done. I'm suffering from neuropathy and the bone marrow, and everything else from the chemo. I could say I'm out of here. No, I still got 2 arms and 2 legs. I can still think. I can still do stuff. There's no reason for me to cheat and get out of here. I know what I'm going to do next is going to be impactful. So let's do it. Right. But to see all the love from these angels for all these other people was remarkable. I mean, just remarkable. So that's the difference, is that my perspective changed, and I'm grateful. And I don't know how much time I got, I think my sister's way over optimistic, and I tell her, Kelly, I don't have that much time, but I've got time, okay? Because they kind of said, well, if you want to go now, you can, because otherwise, you're going to be going, but it's not right now. So I don't know how much time I got. So there's still a lot more that I want to do that I'm going to do. And that's different from like, you know what, screw everything else, I'm out of here, right? So you see the difference.
Mhm.
And the difference is because I've learned that every single person on this planet is significant. Every single person has a reason for being here, but every one of us has a reason for being there for other people. So remember, every single thing you do, whether you recognize it or not, has a significance to somebody else. So I'm like, well, I go back to the last scene or the ending scene in Schindler's List when he walks out and he sees the car and they built this car and stuff, and all these people survived the camps in the Nazi death camps because he gave them a job. And he's like, oh, if I only could have gave a couple more people jobs and more people jobs, I would have saved them, right? And he cried. I remember walking out of there bawling. I was like, my girlfriend said, "Are you okay?" I could not stop bawling, and I didn't. I kind of knew how. Wow, that's so sad. But the significance of that was really parallel to when I had the near-death experience with the bridge, and they showed me all these people like are relying on you. So now it's like, God, we got more people. We got more people to try to influence or inspire, or for them to teach and learn to teach me. So it's like, let's do as many people as we can and interact with as many people as we can. And then when we've gone through the whole list, create another list. And we've gone through that list and there's no more, then you can send me home, but not yet. And all that I thought about in those microseconds while they were there, there was no arguing. There was no like, oh, should I go? No, I was like, no, what are you doing here? Get out of here. You know?
I think that's a really good point in how we all, well, it's also speaking to like the interconnectedness of all of us, right?
Exactly.
Um,
100%.
I mean, like I'm always telling people, like even if you don't agree with someone's views, like we're all interconnected in some way or another. So,
Yeah.
last closing question before we ask you how people can get in touch with you and work with you. Um, if there's one message you could give the collective right now, what would it be?
Discernment. We're in a time where we're being lied to about so many things. And if we don't get back on track to truth and universal truth, the entire fabric of this universe is going to shred and collapse, meaning major natural disasters, World War III. People will be getting more and more crazier because the glue of universal truth and honesty that holds every single person's destiny and path together is being pulled and tugged by others that's not true, which then takes us on a path that doesn't exist. And when you go on a path that is not supposed to exist, it collapses because there's no foundation to hold everything together. And that's where we're headed. It's not a positive one. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to hold back. And there's people who are like, well, no, you got to be just okay, you can be positive all you want, but if your boat's singing, you got to do something about it so you don't drown. So I'm just telling you, this is what's happening. And if we don't pay attention, it'll be too late. And then you'll say, why didn't you warn us? I tried to warn you. I tried to warn you about Iran being bombed. Nobody listened. It was all over my social media for years. You know, why are you laughing? It's
No,
true.
I get it. I get
I
it.
get it,
I get
yeah.
it. Trust
It's
me,
relatable.
So it's the point I'm at now. Like, you know what? I'm just going to shut up because nobody listens anymore anyway. And even when it does happen, they don't say anything. So everybody wants to, I don't know, Toto, there's no place like home. Just like,
we still put it out there, get lit up on different platforms. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. You can just make some random people unhappy on TikTok and that's a day.
yeah.
But it's a good message. I think discernment is important right now,
Oh,
especially
it's
as where we're
so big.
moving, like where we're moving as a collective. It's it's the foundation of everything.
The biggest thing is like, it just popped in my head because I was talking to my buddy Brad about this last week. Everybody's talking, but nobody's listening.
Mm, yeah.
That's a
Why?
problem as well.
That's true. I didn't think about it that way.
which I feel like is a natural plug into how people can work with you and your upcoming music.
Just listen to my music. That's a nice little segue you had there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'll say this real quickly because I don't know how much time I got, but I know I've been working diligently and I've got my webmaster to work with tonight and some other stuff is during that whole time, I stopped doing everything through the cancer, chemo, and I just wrote music. I just put my passion into writing music. And there's a whole story about that. You could read it on my website. That'll be up. But I just started creating music because it was one thing that we never got to complete years ago when I went in the studio with some friends and stuff. And I've always wanted to do something like that, never did. And I said, all right, I'm just going to go down this path. And it's for me just to create. If people like it, they like it. I'm not doing it to become famous. I'm not doing it to be admired or loved or worshipped. No, I'm just doing it because I want to express myself in another form of art. And if people like it, they like it. It's going to surprise people. But that's what I'm doing now. And tomorrow, is the pre-sale for Boogeyman Blues, which I decided the first album I was going to do was hard rock and heavy metal, which I have, and I will release that. But I have some other people that want to collaborate with me, which is kind of exciting. So if we get to that point, that'll happen. But I decided that, okay, I'm going to tell some of these stories and these experiences through not only my own words and my lyrics in Boogeyman Blues, in old blues style, trance blues and rock blues, but also the spirits that were coming to me as I was getting into the music while I was at home and when I was in the hospital. And the spirits that were coming through to help me write and that were present. I remember being in my family room right over here and all these, blues singers and women and children that were there from the early 1900s standing in my room. And I remember I was in these tears as we wrote the song Jumping Jubilee and We Are Free and Let's Sing It Now. And when you hear those songs, you're going to be like, close your eyes and listen to it. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it because I felt it. They were around. So that is like telling their story because I've communicated with spirits and I asked them to come through to help because I couldn't do it on my own. But also myself with that creative concept and the production and composition and stuff that I use with these tools to do it. So I wrote all the lyrics, the titles, and I put in who I wanted to sing, my musical inspiration growing up of background singers like Another Brick in the Wall, Pink Floyd with the children singing, and with certain hard rock licks and certain artists. Had all that in my idea to kind of get the point across with each song. Very catchy, melodic, foot stomping, and cinematic. You'll see little cinematic bits here and there, and you're like, whoa, this instrumental is wild. Was all pre-planned and they're put in. So it's exciting to see where it goes. And they've already told me it's going to be a slow burn, meaning that it's going to take time for people to digest and recognize, and I'm perfectly fine with that process. Because next week I'm starting on my next album. I've already been in the studio with it. So it's like, I'm just going to keep cranking stuff out and hopefully, it finds an audience. If not, at least I got to do it. That's what I'm saying,
And it's like a lasting legacy too.
Well, that's one of the songs I wrote, Never Give Up, because doctor says I'm going to die. I said, all right, I'll give it a try. But I still got things to do, and I wrote that in this hard rock song, Never Give Up. And I say, even if I do die, you're going to be able to hear my voice. You're going to hear my words. And that's in the one song. It's a really good song. That's not on this album, but that's there. So a lot of those moments and other moments throughout my life, like good old Henry, that's the ghost that I grew up with in the Ouija board and stuff, my drawings and my lectures. I wrote a song about him and I'm so pleased with it. So pleased with it. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is great. So I look forward to people hearing it. Like I said, tomorrow, pre-order starts with the CD vinyl. I'm doing 200 CDs to start off with. This distributor is going to take 80 of them to Walmart and eBay and some other stuff. The other 120 I'm going to sell myself at conventions. Only 100 vinyl records. They're colored vinyl. I've done all the packaging, design, laboriously. I had to learn some old programs I haven't touched since the 90s, so it's been very frustrating. But I designed graphics, everything designed, typed. I've done everything. Everything comes from what I've done because I wanted to have that hands-on. So there'll be 100 vinyl records. There are 2 LP sets, gatefold, lyric sheets. I just finished up the lyric sheets last night, so you can have the lyrics for it. I'm only doing 100 of those because it's so expensive to print them. It's cost me $60 per record alone just to print. So because
Yeah.
there's so much to it, the packaging and everything. So I'm just going to do 100 of those. If those sell out, then I'll do more. But that's all I'm doing for now. And then it's going to be digital download, iTunes and Amazon. And I keep watching to see if they've got it up. They don't have it up yet. It's supposed to be up by tomorrow for pre-sale. But the actual album is going to be released on June 12th. So when I say June 12th, that's when you pre-order, you'll be able to access the whole album, right? So I'll be promoting it over the next couple of weeks. But if you want to order the CD, I'll have those in 2 weeks. So those will ship in like 2 weeks. And then the vinyl is going to take a couple months. So it might take like 60 days. But you can pre-order it because when they'll sell out, I'm not going to do another one unless there's a big demand for it. And then I start working on the other genres, the other music in the studio and collaborating. And a friend of mine who's in the music industry, I'm not going to say who he is, but you'll find out soon enough. He wants me to produce his next album because it's been 30 years since he put out a record. And he wants to do a solo album. And he's been one of my best friends since 2010. He's seen what I've done. He's like, dude, I want you to produce my album with me. And I said, awesome. So that's next year. I said, let me get my stuff out this year, learn all this, and then I'm there for you. So I hope that comes to pass because that is part of my passion that I've always wanted to do. And I think, God's given me that chance. So I hope you guys like the music. I know some of you will. It may not be your taste, but keep in mind there's other music coming out. There's hip hop 80s, there's hard rock, there's industrial, there's some electronica dance, beautiful Enya type stuff that I did as well. They're all done. I just have to finish them, polish them, and then get them out there. So
Awesome.
yeah,
It's a
thank
lot.
you.
It's a
Yeah,
lot,
it's a
Chris. You're
lot.
very, very busy.
Yeah, I don't do anything. 7 days a week. I'm tired a lot with the chemo and I'm not able to put in a lot of time and everything. So, the time I have, I'm just trying to get all this done. And I just hope I'm able to, because I want you guys to hear it. And I think there's going to be something for everyone in this music. And I think maybe, I'm not going to assume because I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll let the universe do that. But I know from a couple songs I wrote, like My Angel and The Bridge and Meet You at the Bridge, which is about animals when animals have died and you meet them on Rainbow Bridge. Those songs I wrote are going to inspire and touch a lot of people. And then Never Give Up and I Don't Want to Go. And those are going to inspire people that have thought about suicide or dying or whatever. And they just want to keep going. So I think some of these songs are really going to touch people because I know music has touched me over my lifetime, has inspired me at moments when I felt down. So maybe this is the way the creator is going to help me reach other people from the bridge is with this music. I can only hope so, you know? Yeah.
I agree.
Ding, 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 ding. Do you see that one Indian dancer? I forget his name, Dijan or whatever his name is. It's gone like viral. He does this like Indian
I have
dance and stuff.
not.
He just
I
sold
don't
out
think I've seen
Chicago.
this.
Oh my God, it's so cool. It's so cool. Him
Okay.
dancing and you watch the background dancers. You got to watch it. I forget his name, but he's an Indian singer and he's huge in America. He was on one of those talk shows and he's been selling out all across the country because I think this is one of his first US tours or something. You may not understand the music because it's in Indian, but the way they're dancing and everything, the beats are so cool. I mean, I love that cultural music that just has that great hook to it.
Well,
It.
Chris, I mean, if you want Twin Essence to start like a Boogeyman Blues TikTok dance trend, like we will do it.
Here's the thing: is there a lot of these songs are dance song. You can dance to them. These blues songs, bob your head, sing along to everything. So I'm going to leave that up to all the listeners and the viewers out there when they start hearing the music. If they want it, because my music's going to be on TikTok, it's going to be on Instagram, it's going to be on Facebook. So you will be able to grab it and put it in your videos. I've already sent that to DistroKid. So starting June 12th, I think those would be available, those songs. So people can mix that music in with their videos.
Hey, this is exciting. It's exciting.
It's very exciting, you know? Yeah,
Getting
but
some
we're not there
hugs
yet.
and-
It's got to get released and got to finish this website tonight. So
All right. Well, you are getting some hugs and love in the chat.
thank you.
But with that, Thank you all for joining us live. You can check out everything, all of Chris's work, all of his social media. Everything is linked in the video description below. And if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can connect with Lacey and I on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Twinessence LLC. As always, if you're looking to work with us, we recommend starting with a twin magic reading, and that can be booked on twinessence.com. We'll see you all next time on June 3rd. We have our very first pair of sisters joining us on Between Dimensions. So we have Chelsea and Taylor Bratches, who will be talking about somatic channeling, and that'll be at 5 p.m. CST on June 3rd. All right, everyone. Thank you.